Everyone thought he had lost his mind. Why would anyone beg to dig up their own mother's grave? But when the coffin was finally opened, even the priest screamed. This wasn't just a burial. It was the beginning of something much darker. It started 6 months after Mrs. Eliza Whitmore was buried under the old oak tree at Hillgrave Cemetery. Her death had been ruled natural, an elderly woman passing peacefully in her sleep. But her only son, Thomas, never accepted that. He disappeared from the village the day after her funeral, refusing to speak to anyone, not even the priest who had guided him through the burial. When he finally returned, he was almost unrecognizable. His face had grown pale and hollow, his hair unkempt, and his hands trembled constantly. But it was his eyes, those wide, sleepless eyes, that unnerved the townsfolk the most. Thomas claimed he hadn't slept a full night in months. Every night, at exactly 3:03 a.m., he'd wake up choking, to the sound of his mother's voice, whispering from beneath the ground. "She's calling me," he told the townspeople. "Every night, same time. She says she's not at peace." They thought he was mad, still mourning, still broken. But he insisted something was wrong with her burial. He pleaded with the town mayor and the church council to exhume the grave, claiming there had been a mistake. He even offered to pay every penny of the cost himself. But the mayor refused. "The dead should rest," he said, "and so should you." That night, the storm came. Wind howled through the village like a scream, and thunder rattled the old windows. At midnight, Thomas was seen walking toward Hillgrave Cemetery in the pouring rain, his coat soaked, his boots caked in mud, a rusted shovel in one hand, and a flashlight flickering in the other. He wasn't talking anymore. He was digging. As the rain poured down like nails from the sky, Thomas dug, frantic, furious, as if the earth itself was keeping secrets from him. Every shovel strike was heavier than the last, splashing mud and water across his face. The wind hissed through the trees, almost whispering his name, Thomas. But he didn't stop. He couldn't. By now, a few curious villagers had gathered near the cemetery gates, watching from under umbrellas and lantern light. No one dared approach, because something about that night felt wrong. Even the animals were silent. No dogs barking, no owls hooting, just the rhythmic, obsessive sound of metal hitting dirt. After nearly an hour of digging, Thomas reached the coffin. His flashlight flickered again, just once. Then again, he froze. The temperature around the grave had dropped sharply, as if winter had bled through the soil. It was freezing, unnaturally so, and steam curled up from Thomas's mouth as he breathed. That's when Father Malcolm arrived. Clutching his rosary, the priest tried to stop him. "Thomas, this is madness. Whatever you think you've heard, it's grief speaking." But as the priest stepped closer, he paused. He felt it too. The air was wrong. Not just cold, but heavy, pressurized, as if the very ground beneath them was holding its breath. Thomas pointed at the coffin. "It's sealed from the inside." Father Malcolm leaned in, and his heart nearly stopped. Nail marks. Fresh, deep scratches carved along the inside of the lid. Not from shovels or tools, but from fingernails. The priest went pale. Dear God, and still the coffin hadn't been opened yet. What lay inside would haunt them forever. With trembling hands, Thomas wedged the crowbar beneath the coffin's lid. Each creak of the wood sounded like a scream swallowed by the storm. Father Malcolm stood over him, whispering prayers under his breath, gripping his cross so tightly that his knuckles turned white. The final nail gave way with a sharp crack. And then, silence. No one breathed. Even the wind seemed to stop as the lid slowly creaked open. What they saw inside wasn't just horrifying. It was impossible. Mrs. Eliza Whitmore's body wasn't resting peacefully. Her arms were twisted above her head, elbows shattered. Her fingernails were torn and bloody, embedded with wood splinters from clawing the coffin lid. Her mouth was open in a frozen, silent scream, jaw unhinged, and her eyes, wide open, glass-like, staring straight at Thomas. But what truly paralyzed everyone was the expression on her face. She was smiling, not a peaceful smile, but a warped, stretched, almost delighted grin, like something had found joy in her torment. Or worse, like someone else had taken over. Father Malcolm fell to his knees. This isn't natural. This is blasphemy. Thomas reached into the coffin, sobbing uncontrollably now. I didn't kill her, he whispered. I swear I didn't kill her. That's when he noticed something in her hand, clutched tightly between her cold, rigid fingers. Was a folded, yellowed piece of paper, perfectly dry, untouched by decay. As Thomas slowly uncurled her hand, the note came free, and with it, the smell of sulfur filled the air. The note felt impossibly fresh. No rot, no stains, just smooth, aged paper like it had been placed in her hand yesterday. Not 6 months ago. Thomas hesitated. Father Malcolm, still kneeling by the grave, urged him softly. Read it, son. Whatever truth is buried here. It's time we face it. With shaking fingers, Thomas unfolded the note. 5 words were scrawled across it in a shaky, desperate hand. He buried me alive. The priest gasped, crossing himself. Thomas blinked, trying to process it, but before he could speak, he noticed something else. On the back of the note, another message. This one was written in bold, angry strokes, jagged, almost carved into the paper. It wasn't my son. It was him. The one with no face. A chill ran down Thomas's spine. His voice cracked as he whispered, No face? He looked up at Father Malcolm, who now seemed pale as a ghost. The priest's eyes darted around the cemetery. He swallowed hard. There are old legends, he said. Things this village forgot. Shadows that wear people like clothes. They mimic the living. And they feed on fear, on suffering. Thomas's voice rose in horror. You think something possessed me that night, made me bury her alive? I don't know, the priest said quietly. But if what she wrote is true, then whatever buried her is still out there. Thomas looked down at the smiling corpse. He swore her grin had widened. Just then, the flashlight flickered again. And in the flicker, for the briefest moment, he saw a figure standing at the edge of the cemetery. Tall, still, featureless, watching. The figure at the edge of the cemetery stood impossibly still. No face, no eyes, no mouth. Just a silhouette darker than the night around it, like a hole carved into reality itself. Thomas dropped the flashlight. It shattered on the grave's edge, plunging the scene into near total darkness, save for the occasional flash of lightning overhead. In those flashes, the figure moved, not walking, not running, just appearing, closer, closer, like it was skipping time. Father Malcolm shouted, Don't look at it. Get back. But it was too late. A long, guttural scream tore through the night, not from Thomas, not from the priest, but from another grave nearby. The ground began to shift. One grave, then 2, stone cracking, dirt pulsing, as if the dead beneath were being stirred by something ancient and angry. Thomas fell back into the muddy earth, his breath catching in his throat. Around him, hands began to rise, decayed, broken, alive. And then Eliza moved. Her body sat upright in the coffin, limbs bending like a puppet on strings. Her head turned toward Thomas, and her voice, now warped and echoing, whispered, You opened the gate. The wind howled like 1,000 voices in torment. The cemetery was no longer a resting place. It was a mouth, wide open, ready to swallow. Father Malcolm raised his cross and began to pray louder, but even his words sounded muffled, as if something was pressing against reality, bending it. Thomas scrambled up, soaked in rain and fear, trying to run. But the figure was already in front of him, face to face, nothingness staring into his soul. Suddenly, every light in the village went out. Every window, every candle, every breath of hope. And then, silence. When the townspeople returned the next morning, the grave was closed. Thomas and Father Malcolm were gone, but Eliza's coffin was still open, empty. Only the note remained, now rewritten in blood. She's not the only one calling from below. Outro, final narration. Some doors should never be opened. Some voices should never be answered. Because once you dig into the dead, they might just dig their way back. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more true horror you were never meant to hear. What would you do if your dead loved one was still trying to reach you from the grave? Let us know in the comments. And remember, some doors should never be opened. Subscribe for more terrifying tales before midnight.